without further ado, let's get to the main part of today. And I'm going to introduce Stacy Nemo with Red Wing Ignite. She's the executive director, and she is leading a panel, and I'll let her and them introduce themselves. But thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Mila. And good morning, everyone. We are really happy to be here sharing a cup of coffee with you this morning. And as Mila mentioned, Red Wing Ignite, we are the hub organization for the 11 county region of Southeast Minnesota and are part of this Launch Minnesota network. We make up, the E1 Collaborative is a collaborative of 16 entrepreneurial support organizations, all with varying missions and areas of outreach. But together, what is, I think, really unique and really wonderful is the way that we have been able to work to bring down some of those silos between organizations and leverage the strengths of each of the various organizations. That really is going to be the focus of our discussion today. And we're going to be talking about how has this collaborative that has been put together that we've been working together for a little while now, how has it benefited our individual organizations? How has it benefited entrepreneurs that are throughout our region? And how has it benefited just us together as a group? And what have we learned? And what kinds of challenges have we overcome? So we'll hear from each one of the E1 partners that are part of the panel. And I do see a number of E1 partners also that have joined us this morning, and at least one Southeast Minnesota entrepreneur here in the group too. So good morning to all of you. I'm going to turn this over to Shannon. She's going to give a little bit of a background of our history and how this was developed, and then we'll hear from each of our partners.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Shannon Harris. I'm the Operations and Program Manager here at Red Wing Ignite. I've been part of this organization for about 6.5 years now. And as many of you on the call are aware, at the time I started here at Red Wing Ignite, Mila was the executive director. And we had the opportunity to work with Smith, the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation, to do a pilot project called the E1, or Entrepreneurs First. And many of the folks on the call today were part of that pilot. So we ran a 1-year pilot experiment grant to see, can you put the entrepreneur in the middle? Can we come together and figure out, hopefully, an easier way to identify entrepreneurs, to share their needs, to get them some services that they need? And it was successful. You know, there were certainly months of conversations and relationship building. Some of the people knew each other from before, some didn't. We wanted to identify a simple intake process that we could all share and agree on. And then there were some small micro grants that were paid out to contractors to support the entrepreneurs at various steps in their journey. So while that process was going on, we were working on our submission of a federal grant, the EDA I-6 Challenge Grant. And it really has 3 legs to its stool, and one of those legs is E1. It is the E1 initiative and the idea that you can bring a whole host of different kinds of support organizations together with a range of goals and objectives and missions and still serve entrepreneurs in a more effective and efficient way. So we were fortunate enough to be awarded that grant, and E1 became part of that. And we were able to continue with some of that federal funding, and then very excitedly have been part of the Launch Minnesota network and serve as the hub organization for Southeast Minnesota. So E1 became supersized as we were able to increase the number of partners and the range of services that we were able to provide collectively. And I'll turn it back to Stacy.
Thanks, Shannon, for giving some background there. And so now here we are, a part of the Launch Minnesota network, and working together to support entrepreneurs to the very best of our ability. And so what I'd like to do is turn this over to each of our program partners that are panelists on the call to introduce themselves, tell you just a little bit about their organization, and we'll just kind of do a round robin, and then we'll dive into some discussion. So Margaret, would you like to go ahead and start?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Margaret Bransford from St. Olaf College, and I'm the Associate Director of Entrepreneurship and Outreach through the college. We are a small liberal arts college of 3,000 undergraduate students in Northfield, Minnesota. We don't have a business school. We don't have an engineering school. We're liberal arts. And what we know about students who are in the liberal arts is that they are natural entrepreneurs. So we have a lot of really amazing, creative, innovative ideas coming that our students come up with. And love the opportunity to connect with to connect those students with all of these organizations throughout the Southeast. So we're super excited to be a part of the E1. It really helps us leverage resources. And I'm going to go ahead and just popcorn over to Sam to go next.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us on here. Sam Ziegler with Green Seam. Our mission is really to elevate our region as a world-class food and agribusiness epicenter and to shape the future of agriculture, businesses, and communities in our region. And so it's been great to be part of E1 and the collective group here. We all have our niches and our expertise and interests. And so really glad to be a part of that here. I'm on the far edge of the district located in Mankato, but cover southern Minnesota and into northern Iowa. So it's been fun to be part of this group. I'm going to jump it next to Mark.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mark Thine. I'm the interim director at the Small Business Development Center in Rochester, and we're located at the Rochester Community Technical College. The Small Business Development Center is an SBA resource partner. So that means those SBA programs, that COVID funding and PPP and all of that kind of comes through us, and we help market those and help people guide through those programs. There's 9 centers in the state, so everybody on the call should be located or have access to a small business development center. Barry's on the call in St. Cloud, so if entrepreneurs are up there, contact him. We provide one-on-one business consulting services. So that means marketing research, loan packaging, business plan development to entrepreneurs. And it's at no cost. It's confidential, and the acceptance of the SBDC into the E1 collaborative down here has just been fantastic, and we'll get into that later, but that's what the Small Business Development Center does. I pass the baton to Jamie.
I will gladly accept your baton, Mark. So good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Sunsbach. I am the Executive Director of the Collider Foundation, also here in Rochester, Minnesota. Collider activates, connects, and empowers Rochester's entrepreneurs. We do that in 4 different ways. First is one-on-one ecosystem navigation. We provide educational coursework for early stage entrepreneurs. We have a co-working space here at Collider Co-working in partnership with our friends at Ready. And we also do storytelling with our online news site, Rochester Rising, which tells the stories of Rochester's entrepreneurs. So we have been a proud and happy member of the E1 network, and just been really excited about what we've been able to do for our region's entrepreneurs. And with that, I think, is Jennifer the last one? All right, yes, cool. I'll pass it to Jennifer.
All right, thank you, Jamie. Good morning, everyone. Jennifer Hawkins. I'm with the University of Minnesota Extension's Center for Community Vitality. And our work focuses on supporting communities in their economic and community development efforts. So my role in the E1 is sort of a meta role, helping the group use data to inform strategy and process, and then to understand impacts. And so it's been really fun. I love this stuff, and the group knows that I just get super excited about data. So it's been a real pleasure for me to be able to dive in and support the work in this way. We don't do direct supportive. We don't work directly with entrepreneurs, so this is where I'm able to support the efforts of the group down here. And I am a community economics educator based out of our Rochester regional office. So I cover about 20 counties down in Southeast and South Central. So looking forward to our conversation here.
Thanks to everybody. And Jennifer, I have to say that all of us are super excited that you get super excited about Deb. And so she is in many ways kind of the wizard behind the screen and helping to put all of the pieces together and tell the story through the data that's collected. So one of the things, Jennifer, that I'm wondering if you could share, just to kind of set the stage for this talk about how do we collaborate with one another. You shared some numbers in our meeting yesterday about the number of referrals that we have had within our E1 network, but then also the number of referrals that we've made to other entrepreneurial support organizations outside of the network. Wondering if you could share those.
Sure, yeah, so I was just compiling the January through June metrics for the group. And the data that we have right now, there were 264 connections made for individual entrepreneurs. 124 of those were within the E1 partner network and 140 were outside of the partner network. So lots of dots being connected.
And that is in a 5 to 6 month time period. I feel like for us as a collaborative that really is significant. And I know that without a doubt that if it wasn't for the work that has been put in to develop the relationships between these organizations, which all have the same goal of supporting entrepreneurs, that we would not be able to quantify the number of referrals, and they would probably be much lower, is my good guess. So I'm curious if any of you would like to talk a little bit about keeping those numbers in mind and the number of referrals that have been going on. How has that impacted your organization? How has it impacted the entire Southeast Minnesota area, and then also the entrepreneurs? And I know there were some good stories yesterday that we shared amongst ourselves about entrepreneur impact. It would be great to hear some of those.
I'd be happy to kick it off and share the story of Ian Roback, one of our entrepreneurs who has founded a company called Clearwater. Ian was a St. Olaf student who participated in our Ole Cup pitch competition. And I referred him over to Red Wing Ignite and the E1. Marshall, who's the entrepreneur lead there, took him on. He also, I know, connected with Sam and Green Seam because his company is in the ag sector. And talking yesterday in our meeting, I think probably half of the partner organizations had a connection with Ian at some point. Ian also participated in the Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation Entrepreneurial Bridge competition. And very long story short, after a lot of hard work on his part and a lot of connections with all of these folks, he was able to get funding from both Launch Minnesota, the Innovation Grant, and Southern Minnesota Initiative Foundation. And I know that he's on his pilot project now, and he's going to be getting to revenue within the next 6 months. So we really see that as a success story of a student who, I think he's from Wisconsin, and we were able to kind of keep him in Southern Minnesota and really get his idea moving forward, where he could have just gone back to Wisconsin after graduation and tried to make things work there. So I'm really happy with how things worked out with Ian.
Thanks, Margaret. Are there any other entrepreneurial stories that anyone would like to share, or just general impact?
So I think for Collider, our story, I think, is best told of how we've been able to work together with Sherpa. So Sherpa was a startup that happened here in our co-working space, where the two founders actually met each other in the co-working space. They started to bounce ideas off of each other. And then they kind of settled on a not the idea they have right now, but a good idea, as most entrepreneurs do. And then actually leverages the resources locally here with our co-working space and other local partners to really start to flesh out their idea, to get a little bit of traction, to really understand their market. And then ended up taking one of Collider's educational courses to really kind of help solidify that. And then, you know, we got them connected more with Red Wing Ignite and the Ignite Cup, and they pitched at the Ignite Cup. They ended up winning, and then got into the Minnesota Cup, where they did very well. And then last year, and then placed, I believe, third in their division, but was also named the most innovative Greater Minnesota startup. They continue to have an active presence here. I know the state of Minnesota has been very well connected. They ended up going to also be a part of the G-Beta cohort in St. Cloud. And we're a graduate of that, a great program. So they continue to almost expand across the state and utilize the resources that the entire state could bring to bear. And now I'm really happy to report that they are in, they have a map on their site, you know, over 50 or 60 communities across 3 or 4 states. And they're growing like crazy. Every time they show up here, I think they have another employee they're bringing in. So that's good data. And yeah, we could not be happier with the partnership here in the Southeast to continue to really inspire companies that they're not doing this alone, that there's a community around to support them. And then the great work that's being done with the rest of the state of Minnesota, also recognizing that startups can happen anywhere in Minnesota and surrounding and supporting them with resources.
So I'd like to just comment in regards to the referral process that we have. Just about every E1 partner is somehow connected with the Small Business Development Center as we refer clients back and forth. The unique talent that some of the consultants have with the SBDC and with universities and with Reddy and Jamie and all the other organizations, it's really nice to be able to place that entrepreneur and give them the talent that they need to continue to launch their business. So we continue to refer clients back and forth and work with one another. And it's been exciting because I've been doing this work for maybe 25 years on a kind of a solo small business development center independent consultant gig. And I knew I wasn't the only one out there. Pam Bishop was always with me, but it's really nice to see all these organizations come together. And it's personally very fulfilling for me and for the entrepreneurs. So it's really a beautiful thing. I'd like to just showcase one of our clients too, and she's on this call. Susan Langer started a company called Spave. In the beginning, it was Live, Give, Save, and she was one of the first Ignite clients that came in the door when Neela was the executive director. And so immediately Neela calls me and I call Neela, and we set up a meeting and we're off. So those success stories are just fantastic, and just happy to be part of the group and share it with you.
I'll take a stab at sharing here our story a little bit. Green Seam is focused on economic development, and a part of that is the creation of new businesses and how that will help. And it's been awesome on getting to know this group, because everybody is focused on the entrepreneur side, and everybody's focused on how do we help them through the channels of whatever they're looking to solve that particular time frame. And what I've found is that there's often, because we're in the region we're in, there's people with interest within the ag and food sector. And that's where kind of our expertise lies. And so Margaret shared, about Ian, and Jamie even talked to, about the other one, and the agritourism is a part of that, and how that affects the story of how we have the, live, work, play type region, right? And so For Green Seam, we've been able to be at the table with like-minded individuals trying to just create growth in our rural and communities in this region. And it's been a great success story in all kinds of ways that you don't always get to see the results, or you can't always share exactly who you're all working with, but there are, like the numbers shared, there's hundreds of individuals that are being helped through our channels of being connected. And it's really put, I think, this region at an advantage over other regions, that it doesn't matter if the business lands in Red Wing or the business lands in Austin. It's as long as they stay and they grow their business in the region, we're happy to support them. And we have gotten calls from people outside of the region, and we haven't, turned them down because we still see the value because they've been located in Minnesota or close to us. So it's been a fun project, and looking forward to continuing it.
Excuse me, thanks, Sam. I wanted to just go back and just revisit a little conversation and highlight Susan a bit more, because again, it is a great example of a wonderful success for a startup. So here we have a female startup that has a FinTech product and application in rural Southeast Minnesota, which definitely does not fit the stereotype of a FinTech startup. And it really was Susan's tremendous perseverance, but then the support of a community that is surrounding her, of entrepreneurial support organizations that are all different. Mark was talking about that. And so the really exciting news for Susan was a recent acquisition by Susan. I think I have this correct. It is the largest university affiliated credit union in the United States. And is that right? And Susan, I would love for you to, we didn't ask you in advance, but would love for you to just pop on if you don't mind. This is all just brand new within the last month news. And so feel free to just share for a minute or two.
Thanks. Thanks, Stacy. Yeah, I wasn't prepared. I look so lovely. Yeah, no, it is true. It is about the community. And I look around this on this Zoom, and it does feel like family, because I have been touched and blessed by so many of you on here and couldn't have done it. As you pointed out, Stacy, being an older woman, I would say too, in rural Minnesota doing a FinTech. It was against all odds, but it's not against all odds when you have everybody who is for you and supporting you. And so I am delighted. And I know that there's been talk, because it's a Michigan organization that purchased us, what's going to happen to Minnesota? Well, headquarters is still Red Wing, Minnesota, and it will always be as long as I'm here. And I'm planning to go anywhere. So we're delighted. We have 7 employees that are currently Minnesota employees, and we will continue to build on that. So thank you, everybody, for your support. And thanks, Stacy and Mark. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Susan. Congratulations. And thank you for pointing that out, that it is a Minnesota-based a company, is going to stay that way, and jobs are being created right here in southeastern Minnesota. So, and thank you for being so gracious to let us put you on the spot, too.
I want to add.
I would say that.
Go ahead, Susan.
I was just going to say that Live, Give, Save is a Minnesota company, and it's still in existence, and it owns 20% of SPAVE, and SPAVE is a Michigan company, but still our headquarters of SPAVE is Minnesota, and it's Red Wing. So sorry.
We're so proud of you. I just wanted to add a couple of things. I'm sure that as we work with our other hub partners around the state, one of the things that we all struggle with, and we're all trying to identify, are just ways in the funnel, how we identify entrepreneurs. And I just wanted to say there's no magic formula in southeastern Minnesota. Each of the partner organizations has ways that they work with their own communities and try and identify folks who have an idea and need support. And I think it would have been interesting if we could have started with a ball of twine at our very first E1 pilot meeting way back, 3+ years ago. And we could have thrown that ball of twine, many of you have done this in a team building effort, and we could have passed it. And right through this very moment today, where each of our E1 partners on this screen and the leadership at Launch Minnesota it would be an amazing, colorful, very connected, non-linear path to find entrepreneurs, to support entrepreneurs, and to build relationships with one another and the entire entrepreneurial ecosystem. And I think Susan's ball of twine would be very similar. We all know this isn't a straight line. There are a lot of detours and roundabouts and returning calls and emails and building relationships in a world that was changed in a way none of us could have imagined. And I also wanted to add just a little bit about E1 and how our structure works. So last year in the Launch Minnesota grant, we had decided we were going to meet as a group 2 times a month, one in person and one virtually. And then of course, as we all know, the pandemic arrived and that changed things. So we met for a year virtually, continued to build relationships, continued to have committee meetings. We weren't able to have large in-person events. And this year we're still doing that, regular meetings. Was excited to return to an in-person gathering last month, and we'll have plans to do so the rest of the year. So, we're by far not a perfect organization. There's no perfect answer, right answer, easy manual to how I think this ecosystem works in southeastern Minnesota, but we're a great example of people being willing to come together and, bring down the walls and the silos and look for the betterment of an entrepreneur or those with ideas in our region and in our state, and build relationships and figure out how to come together and help them.
I'll just add a couple of things there, because sometimes we're asked, well, what about an intake form and how do you manage that? And yes, we have a website and we do some joint events, and all of these really are just tools in our tool belt. And the magic formula in all of this really is trust building and relationship building, because we couldn't do any of what we are doing without having that mutual trust across organizations to know that it doesn't matter where an entrepreneur comes into the quote unquote system or what point of entry they have and their first contact with whichever organization. I know that amongst all of the E1 partners that we could refer that entrepreneur over to any of the partners, and they are going to help in whatever way they can. And so it is, there isn't a magic formula. There's no special tool that makes it all work. They all help, but it really is putting in the hard work of building relationship. And so I'm wondering if, I don't know if any of the other partners on the call that are panelists have anything to say about what it's taken to help build that trust and bring down those silos, but if you have any other comments about that, I think that has been a key for us.
I'll add some there from Green Seam standpoint of view. It surely has been the point where we've always seen everybody put that entrepreneur first, which I think the name is key in regards to confidentiality, trust. So you can share some information with our other partners so that they can take the ball and jump into it versus saying, here's a contact, just call them. And then the entrepreneur has to start at the very, ground, and redo the conversation and spend time and resources to do that versus just saying, hey, here's what's happening. Here's the situation they could use help with. Here's a little background. Here's how I see it. I think you could, fill in there or help. And that's kind of been done time and time again from my perspective. I also want to add on to this too, is it's been fun from Green Seam standpoint of the expansion of the outreach is we don't have courses and trainings, but Jamie does, Smith does, Mark does. And so when it comes to those trainings, I don't have to create another event. I can say, here's an event, participate in it. And it's worked out well in regards to say, well, if you're not ready for this event, hey, by the way, here's another event coming next month because somebody else is doing it. And the ability in this past year to do it virtually in some regards has helped some of those because you don't have to be near a community within a certain commute drive time to help expand our outreach. And so we're not events-based, but some of our partners here do a great job at those trainings and events. And so it's been awesome.
I'd like.
Go ahead, Mark.
Yes, Stacy, Shannon, I'd like to comment on the SBDC relationship with Ignite. A year ago, or not quite a year ago, Ignite became an SBDC outreach center. So we kind of took it a step further past that referral place, and there's a little bit of a financial relationship that we have now. And we're able to better serve entrepreneurs in that Red Wing area. Not everybody that comes into Ignite fits that SBDC client perspective, but when they do, we're able to serve them through your organizations with your people as SBDC consultants, and that's helped your numbers and our numbers. But most of all, it's helped the entrepreneur to be able to get services to get up and running and going.
Yeah, I would also echo Sam's point about that language, entrepreneur first. One of the things that I really appreciate about the partners in the E1 is that almost every single one goes above and beyond for that entrepreneur, sometimes to a fault. But, in addition to that, we have a lot of innovative and creative thinkers in this group as well. And so as they're speaking with an entrepreneur, they're able to think about, okay, here are all the resources combined together of these 16 organizations. And so I want to connect you with this one, and I want to connect you with this one, and I want to connect you with this one. And if we hadn't been able to reach that entrepreneur in the first place, just think of all that opportunity that they wouldn't have. And so one of the things that I know we've been working really hard on as a region has been to get to that entrepreneur. And we have a lot of conversations about how can we do that better? How can we better get to that entrepreneur? And I think because we have those 16 organizations, not only can we leverage each other's resources, each other's expertise, but we also have greater ability to connect with that entrepreneur because we're in different spaces. And so, for me, I love the ability to refer students to connections to help facilitate internships when a startup organization could use some resource support from that perspective. It also helps the students. So there's that piece, but there are also there's just so much more opportunity that I can present to that student entrepreneur because I'm connected. And I know in Northfield as well, Northfield Enterprise Center is also a member of the E1. And we work with a lot of small business and entrepreneurs. And because that's in downtown Northfield, they see a lot different clientele than I might see at the college. And we're able to, have those connections happen together. The students are meeting the entrepreneurs. And it can sound a little bit fuzzy, but having those interactions happen, that's the ecosystem, right? That's the ecosystem interacting, and that's what helps bring that entrepreneur to the next spot. And I know for students especially, part of what we're doing for them is introducing them to entrepreneurship. This is what it is. And they might try it and say, oh, that's not for me. But they also might think, well, this is really interesting. I'm going to go have a career for 5 to 7 years. I'm going to go, explore and, do what I need to do. But I've got this entrepreneurial idea in the back of my head. And so my goal is for them to think, in 5 to 7 years when they want to do that startup, I should do it in Northfield. I should do it in southeastern Minnesota because I remember how many resources for entrepreneurs there were back when I was a student. So trying to, not only leverage our network for resources and connections, but also to bring in that entrepreneur to show them what we have to offer as southeastern Minnesota and as Minnesota as a whole.
I think that there may be other partners around the state that have an education partner in their ecosystem, but we're fortunate in Southeast Minnesota to have the 3 of them: St. Olaf, St. Mary's, the Kabara Institute, and the Winona State University partners. And so what Margaret was just describing really impacts all 3 of those in the way that we can interact with students. So I would say to any of you on the call that are part of the ecosystem in whatever way, that student feeder piece is so important. And we've been able to see them, one, as entrepreneurs, but two, this idea of internships. And Susan is also a great example of using a student intern in a small business. So we've been able to connect kind of multiple dots in the education, the higher education space that has benefited students, the schools, the entrepreneurs, and a lot of small businesses in our region.
I have just a question. Jennifer, do you have a few minutes of time? I know you have to hop off early. Could you talk just about the mechanics of this intake form that you have helped and how it helps to facilitate the relationships as a tool, the relationships of the E1 and connecting entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I can do that. So I think this was came out of some conversations about how to coordinate the flow of information for new entrepreneurs that are coming into the system. And so we did create an intake form that lives on the website that entrepreneurs can use, just filling out some high level information that gives the group some sense of what the entrepreneur, where they're at in their process, what they think they might need at this point in time, what they're seeking, what resources they would find most helpful, that sort of thing. And then that goes to the Red Wing Ignite group, so the coordinators of the hub, and then it can be shared broadly with the network so that we can start to connect the resources. So it lives on the website right now as a Google form. And it's, I think it's an iterative process. I think we had a form initially, we've iterated once, we may iterate again. So we're learning, I think we're wearing our entrepreneurial hats, testing things, learning as we go, what works, where things add value, how we can streamline our work in support of entrepreneurs.
Jennifer, are you able to post that link in the chat? We had someone ask about it.
Yep. Yeah, I'll go dig it up.
Thanks. Yeah, as she said, it isn't, we've tried a number of different processes and it has been revised and hopefully improved and adapted, and it will continue to do so. But I think as we are part of this network and part of the hub network around the state, this is really one of the biggest challenges for all of us serving entrepreneurs. What's the simplest way for us to get some baseline information that we all know we need to have? And then how do we share that amongst our partners and others to make it simplest for the entrepreneur to get the services they need? And so we'll continue to listen to feedback and ideas, and we'll continue to iterate because we know we don't have it figured out perfectly, but we're trying to really put that entrepreneur in the center and make it simple for them.
And I think one of the biggest challenges with this shared intake process is the fact that all of our organizations are in different stages and different sizes, and some are very small and some are colleges and universities. And it is the challenge then, because everybody has different systems of tracking information. And so like Jennifer said, it has been an iterative process. And the one piece though that I know, it wouldn't matter what we had in place, what tool we had in place, but if that foundation of trust was not there, and if it wasn't always being worked on to build, it wouldn't matter what tools we had in place, they wouldn't work, because we as a group, our relationships have to work first. So, so there is a question that says, who is working in the hospitality and restaurant sector? How are they addressing workforce issues? And this is someone who is based up out of our region, but in Brainerd Lakes, and it has been really devastating to business in that area. I know it's been devastating all over the state, and especially in our rural communities, but is there any of the partner panelists that would like to dive in and talk about that?
I can chime in here a little bit. So one of the things what we've found facing Green Seam or the ag industry, which ripples into professional services and all the way through the supply chain, is that just been workforce is now went from, third or fourth biggest concern of employees to future growth to now nearly tied with taxes and regulation in a recent survey that we had conducted. And it's all forms of avenues that we need to be, reaching or targeting within this talent supply. There is no magic answer. I always talk about, it's more like silver buckshot, because you need to be out there and try to get little wins other places. And it's a big concern. It's a concern in the Twin Cities, a shortage, but it's really a concern out in rural Minnesota. And so I think we have to, one of the things that we've been finding is working closer and closer with our educational institutions to find those partnerships and be able to show, some career advancement. And so it's not just, a place to show up on a Friday night to make a few dollars, but it's looking at how's that going to progress them in their career and their passions. So that would be one thing, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about some of our strategies, but it's a limiting component to our growth of our communities, and we need to figure out how to attract more people. Immigration's a part of that, which is a hard conversation, but we've done some stuff with some meat packing facilities, harvest facilities in Minnesota to try to find housing. And so it's a lot of limitations in regards to the talent, but we all have a role to play, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would just real quick echo the housing part. Sam, we've had some conversations recently with business folks in Northfield, and that seems to be the number one concern, is for bringing in really good employees and having them stay, is the lack of affordable housing and enough housing.
I think we've always seen the role of Collider as sort of a convener. Obviously, this is we hear it from businesses all the time. So one of the things that we're trying to do more of is being that voice. Here we're the ones on the front lines listening to entrepreneurs and small businesses. So trying to coordinate with our chamber, our EDAs, our city, to really start a dialogue and start some creative thinking around that. But really stepping back and just realizing that a role we could play is just that convener to get people in a room and start those discussions. So that's kind of the role we've taken here at Collider.
There are a wide number of E1 partners on the call. So if any of you that are on the call and aren't on the quote unquote panel would like to unmute and add anything about any of the conversation today, we'd love to have you. I know some of you have chatted things in, but just know that you're welcome to add. And again, we're happy to answer additional questions. And Neil, I don't know if there's something that you were hoping we would cover that maybe we haven't.
No, it's been a very fruitful conversation. I really just want to applaud the efforts of everyone that spoke today and everyone on the E1 panel or E1 collaborative. You are the local champions for our startups and entrepreneurs that are on this call. You now have a central touch point in this region. You reach out to any of them and they connect you to the resources that you need when you need them. As it was shared, do you need an intern, education? Do you want to be engaged in a competition? Are there some statewide events or resources available that you would not have known about otherwise? Instead of you now as an entrepreneur having to navigate the wealth of resources across Minnesota, these networks now are there to lift you up, save you time, and accelerate your growth. But just truly applaud our entrepreneur support orgs that are part of the Launch Minnesota network. I think the first step of our growing our innovation ecosystem are the people. That's our value proposition in Minnesota, and we need those local champions that wake up every day thinking about how we better serve our entrepreneurs, better foster innovation, and grow our businesses. So the work that they're doing is selfless. They are, keeping their organizations going, trying to keep the lights on while they serve others. They truly care about the work that they're doing and their communities. And so I just want to applaud the efforts that they're doing and to let the entrepreneurs on the call know that you're supported.
Well, and I think as we shared some of the history of the E1 and a little bit about Launch and what Neela shared about Launch Minnesota, now, we're all fortunate to be part of this larger statewide network. And so we have the opportunity to be on these calls once a month and to be on the statewide network calls once a month. And, we're continually learning from each other. And then obviously there's a tremendous amount of best practices being done in other parts of the country that people are bringing back to us. So I just think it has demonstrated that, yes, we each have our own lists of to-dos and people we answer to and responsibilities and funding nightmares and all of that. We're all dealing with all of that and having to support entrepreneurs and others that we serve. Some of us have a wider scope than just entrepreneurial support. But we have seen the value in the collectivity in making Minnesota, and obviously for us, southeastern Minnesota, a welcoming, supported place to do business, to start a business, to think about a business, to amend your business. And we have each other to be grateful for. And so we thank Launch Minnesota really for this opportunity and for this network and the statewide support that we continue to get.
Are there any questions from the audience or any thoughts from others that are part of the Launch Network doing this ecosystem building locally? Pat?
I'd just like to make a brief statement. So I'm part of Startup Winona State, which I'm taking over from Will Kitchen. I'm a business professor at Winona State, and just want to give you some comments related to what the other partners were mentioning today. So I've been involved with Will for the last 2 years, and I've seen a very positive impact on our students helping out in the community. But at Winona State, we're have an educational focus. My primary focus is infusing technology into our curriculum. Winona State's a laptop university. We have incredible network and internet resources. One of the prime goals is so that our graduates get the confidence and comfort to work with the latest digital tools so that we can have them go out into the workforce. So, I try to get my students immersed in web technology, video conferencing, and now all the Internet of Things and the infrastructure related to that. And I've seen a lot of opportunity for our students as with this partnership for them to find their calling at the same time helping entrepreneurs and small businesses. And I'd just like to give a invite to anybody who's on this call who's interested in finding out about how I run my classes. You can stop by in person or virtually. You all know how to use Zoom now, and all my classes are on Zoom all the time. And one final thing I'd really like to say, Margaret had it right when she talked about students coming through. They're trying to find their calling. A lot of them don't know right away what they want to do. And even when we have classes in entrepreneurship, a lot of them think about it and they're like, well, I'm not ready for that yet. But she's right in that we were basically sowing the seeds for later years. So a lot of the results that everybody here is contributing to may not be obvious for what has the positive impact you've had until maybe 5 or 10 years down the road. So I just want to applaud everybody for all their efforts.
Thanks, Pat.
I think, Neela, we have just a little bit more time. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask, or any other of our E1 partner organizations that aren't necessarily on the panel? I know there's a couple of you still on here. If you'd like to chime in, feel free.
The other thing is, if there's anything else going on across the state or in your region that you want others to know about before we meet again next month, please share that. I know, Jamie, you're doing some education coming up. I don't know if you'd want to let people know how to engage with that.
Yeah, definitely. We're running a online Basics of Entrepreneurship course, which starts, July 6th and runs through August 26th. It's twice weekly via Zoom, where we're going to give you, really it's aimed at those with a early stage business idea. We're going to help you walk through the process and find hopefully your first few customers. So it's the title is from idea to customer. And then we also have some other stuff going on. So if you ever want to see what we're doing here in Rochester, just head over to collider.mn and check out our education and events page.
can hop in really quickly. My name's Maddie Fisher. I'm actually just kind of the little representative from Smith. I know my boss, Pam, our Vice President of Economic Development, had to hop off this morning, but I'm actually our program manager at this time for the Prosperity Initiative, which is a one-on-one coaching that we match up people, entrepreneurs or people who already own small businesses with a coach for 6 months. So we are still accepting applications. We're really looking to be serving the minority populations in southern Minnesota. So I'll throw some information about that in the chat. But yeah, just a really exciting program, and always really great to see the E1 partners on the call. They really help us to get cool entrepreneurs and small businesses involved in our programs, and we're always happy to refer them to their awesome programs as well. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I'm also throwing in a couple links in the chat, and I'll put some websites on there about some other educational offerings through the University of Minnesota.
I'll just say one last thing about your higher education partners, whether it's here in Southeast Minnesota or other partners throughout the state. Don't hesitate to reach out if you're an entrepreneur and you think that you might benefit from working with a student. It doesn't have to be a full-fledged internship. For example, Mark Tyne just referred an entrepreneur to me, and he's having a really short couple-week project happen in conjunction with one of our classes on organizational storytelling. So he's going to get some marketing support on his story. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a big internship. It can be a small case project. A lot of students interested in consulting are interested in doing some casework for entrepreneurs because they know at startups they can make a big impact. So don't hesitate to reach out. Don't be intimidated. We're here to help you.
I just want to say thank you, Neela, for giving us the opportunity this morning to share what it is that we have going on, and thank you all. I did put the Entrepreneurs First website into the chat. Feel free to connect with any of us. We're with additional questions, or if you're looking for connections, whether you're an entrepreneurial support organization or an entrepreneur. But thank you again, Neela. We just appreciate this time this morning and all that you do to help elevate entrepreneurs throughout the state of Minnesota.
Well, thank you, Stacy, for leading this dialogue. Thank you to all the panelists, all of you for joining us and giving up this hour this Friday morning. I hope each of you maybe met someone new, learned something new, made a new connection, and those entrepreneurs listening might not feel so lonely in your journey. The state, your region, your local communities are here to support you. So I thank all of you, and